Today's first story is The Day the Lake Drank the Earth. Imagine a serene, shallow freshwater lake in Louisiana, barely 6 feet deep, shimmering under the morning sun. Beneath the surface of Lake Peigneur, however, lay a massive salt mine with miles of tunnels, while above it, an oil rig was positioning itself to drill. It was a recipe for disaster. A diamond crystal salt mine operating directly under a Texaco oil rig, separated only by layers of rock and soil. On the morning of November 20th, 1980, a miscalculation occurred. The drill seized up at 1,200 feet, and a series of loud pops echoed across the water. The crew watched in horror as their massive rig began to tilt. They abandoned the platform just moments before it was swallowed whole by the water. But the rig didn't just sink, it had punctured the roof of the salt mine below, creating a drain that turned the entire lake into a giant whirlpool. As the fresh water poured into the mine, it dissolved the salt pillars supporting the roof, causing the hole to grow wider and the vortex to spin faster. Deep underground, 55 miners saw the water rushing in. The lights flickered, and the evacuation alarm screamed through the tunnels. They raced toward the elevator shaft, their only exit, fighting against the wind caused by air being displaced by the incoming flood. Miraculously, as the elevator rose, it narrowly escaped the rising water level. Every single miner made it to the surface just in time. Back on the surface, the destruction was far from over. The whirlpool grew so powerful it began to consume everything in its path. It swallowed 11 barges, a tugboat, 65 acres of land, and even a house trailer. The lake was literally eating the earth. The suction was so violent that it did something physically impossible. It reversed the flow of the Delcambre Canal. Salt water from the Gulf of Mexico rushed inland to fill the void, creating a temporary waterfall nearly 150 feet high. As the mine filled with water, the displaced air was forced out of the shafts, shooting geysers of water and mud 400 feet into the air. For 2 days, the chaos continued until the water pressure equalized. The shallow freshwater lake was gone, replaced by a deep saltwater basin. Incredibly, despite the catastrophic destruction of the rig, the mine, and the surrounding land, not a single human life was lost. However, the ecosystem was changed forever. The freshwater plants and fish died, replaced by ocean species that rode the reversed current. Texaco and the drilling contractor paid millions in damages, but the landscape of Jefferson Island was permanently scarred by a simple math error. The Lake Peigneur disaster remains a terrifying reminder of how fragile the ground beneath our feet really is and how quickly nature can reclaim it. Second story, The Message for 10,000 Years. We're currently building tombs that must remain undisturbed for longer than recorded human history has existed. The high-level nuclear waste we produce today will remain deadly for over 100,000 years. The problem isn't just engineering the storage, it's how to tell the people of the future not to open it. Languages die, alphabets change, and civilizations fall. In 10,000 years, English will be as forgotten as Sumerian is today. So in 1981, the Human Interference Task Force was formed to design a warning system that could outlast culture itself. They realized simple signs wouldn't work. A skull and crossbones might look like a pirate treasure map to a future explorer. One proposed solution was the landscape of thorns, a massive field of jagged 50-foot concrete spikes bursting from the ground. The architecture itself was designed to scream danger, making the very land feel hostile and unwelcoming to the human spirit. The goal was to communicate a message without words. This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here. Another idea came from linguist Thomas Sebeok, who proposed an atomic priesthood to carry the warning through myth and ritual. He argued that while science is forgotten, superstitions and religious taboos can survive for millennia. Perhaps the wildest idea was to genetically engineer ray cats, felines that would change color in the presence of radiation. The plan included creating folk songs and fairy tales about these cats, teaching children that if the cat turns green, they must run. However, in Finland, the Onkalo Waste Repository has taken the completely opposite approach, the strategy of silence. Their plan is to bury the waste deep in the bedrock, backfill the tunnels, and leave no markers at all. They believe that any monument, no matter how scary, will only spark curiosity, like the Curse of the Pharaohs sparked ours. So the safest message might be no message at all, hoping that the future simply forgets this place ever existed. It is a humbling paradox. To protect the future, we must either scream across time or trust in the safety of oblivion. We are the first species to create a legacy that will outlast our own memory, a lethal riddle for 10,000 years. Third story, the village that died for France. In the countryside of central France, there is a village where time stopped completely on a Saturday afternoon in 1944. This is Oradour-sur-Glane, a place that has been left exactly as it was the moment its entire population was wiped from the face of the earth. Before the horror, it was a peaceful, bustling community where people laughed, worked, and lived, just like anyone else. But on June 10, 1944, just 4 days after the D-Day landings, a Nazi SS division surrounded the town, sealing off every exit. Under the pretense of a routine identity check, the soldiers ordered everyone, men, women, and children, to gather in the village fairground. Once gathered, the terrifying separation began. The men were led away to 6 different barns, while the women and children were herded into the village church. The soldiers set up machine guns at the entrances of the barns. At a signal, the firing began, mowing down the men where they stood. To ensure no one survived, the soldiers piled straw and wood on top of the victims and set the barns on fire. Meanwhile, in the church, a crate of explosives was detonated. As smoke filled the sanctuary, the soldiers fired through the windows. 642 people were murdered that afternoon. Only a tiny handful managed to escape the flames and the bullets. After the massacre, the village was looted and burned to the ground, leaving behind only stone shells and iron skeletons. After the war, General Charles de Gaulle made a decision that would turn Oradour into a permanent scar on the French landscape. He ordered that the village never be rebuilt. It was to remain exactly as the Nazis left it, a martyr village. A new village was built nearby, but the old Oradour remains behind a wall, a ghost town frozen in 1944. Today, when you walk through the streets, you see the physical remnants of the lives interrupted. A doctor's car still sits in the town square. Sewing machines, bicycles, and pots and pans still rust away inside the roofless houses, untouched for 80 years. There are no tour guides speaking on microphones here. Signs at the entrance request absolute silence to honor the dead. The cemetery holds the remains of the victims, and a memorial crypt contains personal artifacts found in the ashes. Oradour-sur-Glane is more than a museum. It is a terrifying physical warning of what human beings are capable of doing to one another. As the entrance sign says simply, Souviens-toi. Remember,